Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Ames. I'm Stu Huntington, and today we are continuing our month-long celebration of the 75th anniversary of the fellowship. And we're doing so today by highlighting the UUFA programming for children and youth, which has been a major focus throughout our history. Thank you for continuing to follow safety guidelines and thereby taking care of each other. If you're joining us through Zoom today, please set your viewer option to speaker view, as we feel that will give you the best viewing experience. And also please mute your speaker except during milestones. If you're here in Fellowship Hall, it's wonderful to see you in 3 dimensions. Please disconnect your personal technology to save the bandwidth as we need that for our broadcast. We're continuing to master the intricacies of combining virtual streaming and in-person services, and we thank you for your patience as we do this. It's good for all of us to be together. And now this announcement. For many of us here at the UUFA, the pandemic has focused death and loss during this period of our lives. We've experienced grief while being apart, a challenge for all of us in this beloved community. Now, as we begin to find our way of being together again, let us come together once more to share the burden of death and loss. Please join the UUFA Compassionate Companions on Saturday, October 30th, that's this coming Saturday, at 3 p.m. in the Memorial Garden just outside of our building here to honor those losses that we've experienced during this pandemic separation. This gathering is not meant to take the place of memorial services, which will happen at a later time. But we will come together to share in music, readings, and meaningful ritual as we remember the people and circumstances that are no longer with us. Now, to begin our service, we will light our chalice as we think about the words of Neil Walsh. See the world with the innocence of childhood. Approach the world with the daring of childhood. Love the world with the readiness of childhood. Heal the world with the purity of childhood. Change the world with the wisdom of childhood. It's our tradition to ring a chime 3 times as we begin our time together. Once to awaken the chime, once to open our minds, and once to open our hearts.
I'm Maya Hazlett.
I'm Dan Haug. These are some opening words that we wrote.
I was a child in this fellowship. The religious education program shaped my convictions and introduced me to friends of all ages.
In this fellowship, we are all children, full of questions, full of wonder.
I returned to this fellowship as an adult member because I wanted that same sense of belonging for my own children.
In this fellowship, we are all parents and grandparents, building community here and in the larger world for the sake of future generations.
I am a religious education teacher in this fellowship because I enjoy watching your children grow, in mind, in spirit, and in community.
In this fellowship, we can all be teachers, not claiming to have all the answers, but creating a safe and welcoming place for discovery and spiritual growth.
Thank you, Dan and Maya. That was beautiful. The religious education programs have been meeting in Emma McCarthy Lee Park during this time. Let's take a look at this short video and see how things have been going.
We'll probably light our own chalice. All right, so our chalice is, we are the Unitarian Universalists. We are the church of the open mind and loving heart and helping hands. All right, thank you so much.
We are going to tell a fun story with the bee, and then we're going to learn a bee dance. But first,
I know bee dances.
you know bee dances? Okay. And a circle. All right.
We caught him.
Say again?
And it's Billy Annie.
All enjoyed seeing the children there in the park. We do miss them having them here in the fellowship, gathered up front here on their blue rug and singing them out with a song. And but we're certainly glad that they found a way to gather safely during this time. And we're so thankful for all the volunteers and the staff who have worked so hard to keep them safe and to carry on with their RE program. The classes also chose this week's offertory recipient, which is the Ames Animal Shelter. Please remember to visit uufames.org/give after the service to support our fellowship, our religious education program, and our partner organizations in the community. There's also a basket for that purpose for those of us that are here in the fellowship hall. Over the 75 years of our history, the fellowship has enjoyed many preludes and offertories played by our young people who are learning a musical instrument. Amelia Todd will share this video of a piece that she played on the piano. That was very nice. Our Time for All Ages today is a book created by the pre-kindergarten class back in 1991. The children were asked, what is a church? Here are some of their responses and some illustrations that they shared. A church is a place where people learn things, said Abby. A church is a place where we sing, said Kelsey. A church is a place where babies get baptized, said Emma. Ryan added, a church is a place where you share. Bobby said, a church is a place to make friends. Nathan said, a church is a place to play. Drew said, a church is a place where good people go. Emma said that a church is a place where you make things. A minister works at the fellowship. Joe said a church is the people. A church is where we are now, said Ben. A church is the people that go into it, Ryan said. Ian said, our church is beautiful. The children in the 2021 religious education class were given a similar prompt. A fellowship is, and here are their responses.
Fellowship is community.
A fellowship is a place to learn about what people do year-round when they have different religions or live in different countries. And it's a place to learn about nature and how to respect it and other fun things.
A fellowship is a community. It's really fun. I really like to learn about the cool stuff.
We will now have a responsive reading, and this will be read by Vivian Todd, who's in the 3rd grade, and her father, Mike Todd. Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. Excuse me.
Whenever I do something like that, Stu, I always remind everyone, isn't it wonderful to be human? Good morning. My name's Kent McCusick, the minister serving this fellowship, and it's good to be with you. My pronouns are he and him. Each week we take time in our service to share milestones, significant things that are bringing joy or challenge or gratitude to our lives. We do this in 2 steps today. The first part is for the people who are in the building in Fellowship Hall, who will share their milestones at the special microphone by the piano. After that, we will pause for the tech team to shift to virtual space, and I will let you know when it's time for people in virtual space to share their milestones. So thank you for coming to the microphone, introducing yourself, sharing your milestone, and I'll light a candle for you. This is our time of sharing. People in Fellowship Hall, please come forward if you have a milestone. Before we go to that microphone, I have 2 milestones to share this morning. One is a great appreciation for our religious education volunteers, but also it is an invitation to all of you, whether you are here in this room or in virtual space. We need more religious education volunteers to help with our children. I can tell you for one thing, when I was, before I was a minister, I was invited regularly to be an RE teacher, and I was like, oh no, God, I can't do that. And it ended up being the best thing that I ever did. It drove me into ministry. You don't have to become a minister, but I think you will find that you learn as much as you share with the children. please reach out to Janelle Carlson if you would like to do that. The second milestone this morning is an update and also a bit of sadness. The good part of it is I've been in contact with Loyos and Tundi, the minister of our partner church in Torredalba. They are in quarantine because they both have COVID. They are doing better. They've been quite ill. And sadly, last Tuesday, Loyos's father died. He had had cancer since last summer, and it was very sad that Loyos had been seeing him every day and was unable to be with him at the time of his passing. So I hope that you will keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And if you would like to send a message, well, why don't you send it to me, and I will send a composite email from all of us so that we don't flood his email address with letters. But they would be very glad to hear from you.
Good morning. I'm David Brenner, and the milestone is about the school board elections, which are coming up on November 2nd. And you've probably noticed extraordinary numbers of yard signs. It's a very polarized, in alignment with national politics even, school board election year. So look up things about the candidates, and as with all elections, it's turnout that really matters. And I hope all of you vote. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Richards, and my milestone is that I've just had a wonderful visit with my mom. I just realized that it's been 40 years exactly since I have been with my mom for this long consecutively. It's just great to visit and especially to be back here in the spiritual home that raised me. So it's a wonderful milestone for me and my mom, but also I think for this religious family as well.
I'm Stan Henning. We weren't here last weekend. We were returning from St. Louis. We attended a conference on multiple myeloma. Then on Monday, we found out that Colin Powell died of the same thing, and he was scheduled to get a booster shot. I'm happy to say Kay has had her booster shot, so she's in one step ahead. So we're very thankful.
People in virtual space to share your milestones.
Hello, my name is Mike Todd. It was back in 2017 that members of the fellowship started meeting, talking about alternative educational things and aims, and out of that was created the Community Academy, which the fellowship helped support during COVID years. And we had a big milestone this week. So we officially moved into the ISU Research Park, and that'll be the home of the Community Academy Micro School in the fall of 2022. So it's definitely an exciting week for us. So thank you for all your support, and Yeah, appreciate you cheering us on and spreading the word.
I'm continue the school theme. I am living in Oklahoma City, and as I've said, I'm in seminary at Iliff Theological Seminary, and this week I was challenged with writing a blog on behalf of our fellowship, and it was rather challenging because the current event that I had to deal with in my practical theology class was a father in Arizona staging a citizen's arrest of a principal for enforcing mask mandates. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with this one? But I think I ended up focusing well on one of our principals, and it felt really good actually to really think about what might be wisdom for our community in this assignment. And it was the first time that I felt a different sense of responsibility, thinking that I would want this post to be able to show up on our website. So thank you all again for embracing me in my seminary process, and blessings to you all for continuing your support.
I would, excuse me, I would like to share a milestone. This is Joan White, and I just returned this week from spending a month with my daughter in Spain. I hadn't seen her in 3 years, and she's on a new property, and it was just beautiful. It was lovely. It was surrounded by mountains, and she has all the land she can need for raising her goats, and so she's quite contented there, and it was wonderful to get to spend that time with her. Thank you. Some of you will remember her, Stephanie. She was in the fellowship as a high schooler and afterwards. So thank you.
My name is Nancy Tepper, and I will start by saying I certainly remember Stephanie. And I'm glad to hear that you got to see her. I have taught RE for many years, not every year, but many years, and it has been a wonderful experience. I just want to say I love the way the kids have been going to the park this year, and I think parts of it we might want to keep in our curriculum indefinitely. However, just a word of humor. We used to be known in the old days as the Church of the Cardboard Boxes. And when I went into the hall from the lower parking lot, I noticed a huge pile of containers. We're back to the church of taking things places. Thank you.
The last candle is reserved for all of those milestones that we hold quietly and safely in our hearts. Whatever brought you here today to this room as we listen to the comforting sounds of rain on the roof, or whatever brought you to our virtual sacred space this morning, know that we are one community, and that whatever brought you here today, whatever you are experiencing, no one ever needs to make the journey alone. and you are loved. Let's be together in a moment of silence for those spoken and unspoken milestones. It is good to be together.
Thank you, Reverend Kent McKusick, for guiding us through the milestones process. Now is the time for the responsive reading, which will be read by Vivian Todd, who's in the 3rd grade, and her father, Mike Todd.
The Larger Circle by Wendell Berry.
We clasp the hands of those that go before us,
And the hands of those that come after us.
we enter the little circle of each other's arms,
And the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined to dance.
and the larger circle of all creatures,
Passing in and out of life, who move also in a dance.
to a music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it.
Good morning. My name is Ann Richards. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to be part of your anniversary celebration. It's certainly a landmark for UUFA, and it's an honor for the fellowship that I feel fortunate to have been a part of. I was invited to share a few memories of religious education there. Thinking back about my earliest years at UUFA, I associate going to church with the smell of sweat and old socks. I'm sure that's because the building on Highland hadn't been built yet, so we were all still holding worship and classes in the YMCA. It was under 2 tables in the lobby that I wrote a newsletter about the fellowship. Once my contribution to serious journalism was completed, I faced my most difficult problem. Being only 8 years old, I had no way to copy it. I solved the problem by recruiting my 6-year-old sister and her friend to sit underneath the tables and copy the newsletter in pencil, letter by letter. The flaw in my plan was the half hour it took for the girls to copy it. I urged them to copy faster, faster. It was a wonder there wasn't a strike. The combination of rushed first graders and pencil meant that the product was nearly illegible. But in retrospect, I think it was foreshadowing my adulthood in management. Another favorite memory from my teenage years was when the now deceased Bobby Warman and Lynn Avant took me and Angie Berger to a weekend of RE training for the region. We stayed in a hotel, and I don't remember if I specifically learned anything, but I felt so grown up. It was sort of like coming of age before there was a coming of age. Those years not only gave me an interesting UU childhood, they helped give me a second career. When I decided to become a credentialed UU religious educator, I took classes in UU philosophy, where I learned about humanism and its impact on our faith. I barely had to read the book. As I took classes in religious education history, and we learned about the KIT phase of curriculum development, I remembered exactly what those kits looked like. And when in the same class, we examined how religious educators in the 70s and 80s tended to be women of the congregation who volunteered, I remembered Lotus Miller and Emmy Shakeshaft and my own mother, Mary Richards. Discussions of key curriculum like Haunted House brought back memories of decorating my own big cardboard box. And when one workshop leader asked if anyone knew about the fellowship movement and its impact on UUism, I raised my hand confidently. One of the biggest impacts my UU childhood had on me were the dear friends I met at Ames Fellowship. Some were adults who've since passed, like Roy Warman, who is supportive of me during academic difficulties, and Duffy Lohr, then Robinson, who led RE classes. And then, of course, for all the many youth that I met in FROGS and LRY. Some, like Jenny Keller, I'm still in touch with today. There's a special place in my heart for Ann Richards. Ann not only had the same name, but was in the same age, and had the same interests, and had a wicked, wicked sense of humor. She attended my most recent birthday surprise video party and shared memories of us together at the Ames Fellowship. And those memories were both touching and hilarious. It's not surprising that the fellowship gave me long and lasting, cherished friendships. When thinking of my time at Ames Fellowship, I must admit a special place in my heart for the new building we moved into when we left the Y. The building I knew as a child was not the building it is now. There were no downstairs offices, there was no sanctuary. And this was because after engaging an architect who managed to reflect the beauty and uniqueness of Unitarian Universalism, we ran out of money. Many will remember holding services in the fireplace room, while what is currently the sanctuary was this open half circle attached to the outside of the building. It was sort of like big cement arms reaching out to the people who are driving down Highland Avenue. The effect was bound to make people passing by wonder, what the heck is going on there? In truth, UUism encourages curiosity. And even though the building has long since been finished and there have been additions, the nature of the faith still leads people to ask, what the heck is going on there? And I think that's a perpetually wonderful question. I'd like to close by thanking you for the opportunity to recall some of my favorite times and some really fantastic people. It's been wonderful to think about them. My sincerest thanks for my time in the last 75 years and best wishes for another 75 more.
Certainly thank Ann for those thoughts and remarks. We now have a musical interlude, and this is a musical selection which will be played by one of our high school students, Kaylin Schmidt.
Hi, I'm Kaylin, and I'll be playing Give Up by J.S. Bach.
My name is Dan Haug. I came across this diary and these photos in a box in the basement. They capture a time when the fellowship had a large and active high school youth group. And in this diary are a lot of the concerns of teenagers anywhere, but mixed in with that is Unitarian Universalism. So there is a entry about love and is Maya the one? Spoiler alert, she is. We're still married. But there was also in that musing, there was a reference to Ralph Waldo Emerson as something that Maya had said in our youth group meeting. There was, some drama over who sat next to who at a party, but it was a Unitarian Universalist youth group party at Curie McHugh's. And there were entries about summer camp, but it was Camp Unistar, the Unitarian Universalist summer camp in northern Minnesota, and featured in those entries were other people from the fellowship, Leslie, Aaron and Paul Myers, and Andy Struck-Marcel. And the thing I remember about Camp Unistar is how much we learned to build community there. That when I was a senior leaving, I felt like I was making the younger people feel a part of this thing, and kind of continuing the legacy as well as connecting with nature. Conferences were a part of the youth group. This was the time of YRUU, the Young Religious Unitarian Universalists. We loved upon. So the conference that I mentioned in my diary was LingCon in Lincoln, Nebraska. I think there may have been a lot of shenanigans at those conferences that ultimately led to that group being dissolved. But what I remember is about those conferences is it was a place where LGBT youth like Brian Allen, pictured here, could really shine and be appreciated. That I have an entry in my diary saying about how he stole the talent show with this and was beloved by all with this drag routine that he sang to RuPaul. Coming of age was also very important. What struck me in those entries was the big ideas we were grappling with about the nature of self. And so I was in discussion with Andy Struck-Marcel, pictured here, about is there a eternal soul? He came down that yes, there was. I came to the conclusion that no, I could explain my identity in terms of my genes and experience, and I was okay with that. Because I had wrestled through some ideas about free will with Fritz Franzen, my mentor, and with Brian Esslinger, the minister. And I have, some of the ideas that they had talked about, spelled out in detail in that diary. And perhaps most significantly was our trip to Boston, led by the minister, Brian Esslinger, and the DRE, Bennett Sherman. We called it a pilgrimage because we visited a number of Unitarian and Universalist historic sites. I don't have it pictured here, but I actually swam in Walden Pond where Thoreau did his writing. And there's some funny stories from the Boston trip. We blew our meal budget on the first night, and so I took home hummus in a water bottle and ate hummus out of the water bottle the next day with goldfish crackers. Maya and Kiri got horribly sunburned, but we came out of it with a greater appreciation for the history of Unitarian Universalism and really feeling a part of it.
My name is Milo.
Okay, so it is the 75th anniversary of our fellowship, and actually I used to be an RE. I think it was like 30 years ago. So I'm kind of wondering what's changed. So do you still light a chalice at the beginning of RE? Okay.
Yes, we light a chalice every day we do RE.
Okay.
So I made some tie-dye bags. That was just last week, and there are some right over there actually.
Okay.
Yes, I did RE online.
So what do you think is best, to be in the classroom or outside or online?
I like being in the classroom just because that's what I'm used to, but outside is definitely better than online.
Okay.
I think we should still be doing, like, at the beginning when everyone opens the book and sings, you know?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
And this will be performed by Leif Haug, who's in middle school, and he will sing hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. If you're joining us from home, feel free to sing along. Those of us here will just enjoy the music.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves the mourning. Oh, we'll promise land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace. Justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them gardens instead of pastures. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace. Justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
For our final reflection, we are turning to Reverend Sarah Richards, who's the minister of the Carbondale Unitarian Fellowship in Carbondale, Illinois. And we are so fortunate to have Sarah here with us in person. So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Stu, and thanks for inviting me to be here this morning. Congratulations on your 75th anniversary. My family arrived in Ames a few months before the congregation broke ground for this building in 1969. You heard a little bit of that history from my older sister. I remember being here for that special occasion. And now, more than 40 years later, I'm honored to contribute to this celebration as a proud child of Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Ames Religious Education. Here is what I remember of those very formative years. Meeting my lifelong friend, Jenny, AKA Jennifer Keller, and having many adventures in and beyond RE. It was a wonderful happenstance that she was in town for just a few days this past week, so we were able to get together again in our old stomping grounds. I remember that we made a diorama of the Kalahari Desert for some lesson, and then snuck back later to eat the Nilla wafer sand dunes. With the other RE kids, we went on field excursions with Lotus Miller, a wonderful, patient teacher with really an actual twinkle in her eye, who exuded love for the natural world. I especially remember trips to collect fern fossils. We learned about evolution from Fritz Franzen. I remember a paper cone with a spiral out on the outside, the bottom, the earliest evidence of life, to the current era at the top. And speaking of Fritz, he and Susan earned their UU sainthood as leaders of our junior high youth group called the Frogs, Friendly Religious Organized Group. I would say that only the last initial was accurate. We raised money selling donuts during coffee hour for, I think, more than a year. and by haranguing our parents to finance a carefully planned camping trip to the Four Corners area of the Southwest US. There is unfortunately not enough time to tell even one of the many, many stories of that trip, of the Franzens and 5 teenagers in their VW bus, remembering the incredible landscapes so different from any I'd ever experienced in the Midwest. The food, this was a time when Taco Time restaurant was my reference point for Mexican cuisine. So you can imagine the food was a revelation. The ruins of ancient civilizations that I'd read so much about, their descendants and all the people we saw and met reinforced a basic teaching from my UU religious education. There are many, many different ways of being, many different peoples and cultures, that there is no one right way, no superior culture, but many, many to try and understand and explore. Although it was a surprise to me at the time, looking back, I can draw a line from that frog's trip to my first career in anthropology. But how did I, raised in a proudly lay-led fellowship, end up becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister who serves a fellowship that also has a proud lay-led history? I used to say it's karmic retribution. But in reflecting on my deeply formative experience in RE here, that is not accurate. The former DRE at the congregation I serve said all the time, children don't remember what they learn. They remember how they felt. All Unitarian Universalist kids feel like misfits because we're in the mini minority wherever we are. My sisters and I were the only Unitarian Universalists in Nevada schools at that time, and we always felt like outsiders there. Here at the UUFA, I didn't feel weird, or I should say, we were all weird, and that made me feel at home. The RE teachers cared for and about us, and we knew it. So I can draw a line, crooked and curved maybe, between my years growing up in this fellowship and my ministry today. When I watch kids' performances, I remember Jenny and I singing John Denver duets as teenagers during a service. We were encouraged and felt held by our people. I'm so glad that the tradition continues and that I got to hear Kaylin and Leaf carry it on. So this is how formative my religious education experience has been. It led me first to study other communities, then to help lead one. It embedded in me the value of spiritual and religious home that welcomes all and works to live into that value. It demonstrated a team approach, a collaborative approach to the constant recreation of that home to widen the circle of care and commitment. It has led me now full circle. Many, many thanks and many congratulations on 75 years.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We will now hear Be the Light, sung by Leah Morris and the families of Carpe Diem Arts. This will be followed by a responsive reading by Reverend Sarah Richards and her mother, Mary Richards, which will close our service.
there is always a light. When we're ready to see it, there's always a light. When we're ready to be it, to see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will. There's always light. 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 We're ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Together we will. There's always shine. There's always light. There's always shine. There's always light. See the light, be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. There's always shine. There's always light. There's always shine. There's always light. See the light, be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill. Be
Shine your light in the darkness. Shine your light in the darkness.
To see the light,
Let your bright light
raise our eyes in the dark of night,
and be
to
a
climb this hill.
in
Together
the
we will.
world.
Shine your light in the darkness. Shine your light in the darkness. Let your bright heart burn out loud. Be a God in the world.
In a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart, laughter and tears, musings and deeds.
Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses the gulf between the generations.
Therefore, we do not neglect the ceremonies of our passage. When we wed, when we die, and when we are blessed with a child.
When we depart and when we return, when we plant and when we harvest.
Let us bring up our children. It is not the place of some official to hand them their heritage.
If others impart to our children our knowledge and ideals, they will lose all of us that is wordless and full of wonder.
Let us build memories in our children, lest they drag out joyless lives, lest they allow treasures to be lost because they have not been given the keys.
We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. It is needful to transmit the passwords from generation to generation.
Extinguish our chalice.